Cool. So now we are recording.
It's always tricky to look at the camera when you're talking to through a webinar.
Don't worry about it. I don't think I'm good at it either, honestly. And I've done quite a few of these, and yeah, whenever I watch it later, I realize that actually I haven't been looking at. I look at the faces of the people that I'm talking to, not the camera.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So thank you everyone for joining us today. I really appreciate the time that you're giving us today. My name is Wala Hamdan, and I'm the director for Startup Grind Muscat. Startup Grind Muscat is a member of the largest independent startup community in the world. Globally, we actively educate, inspire, and connect 3.5 million founders in over 600 cities. And locally, Startup Grind Muscat exposes Omani entrepreneurs to successful tech entrepreneurs around the region and now globally with our virtual events. I have quick thank yous, and then I'll introduce Nadine, but also some housekeeping notes. So yes, first of all, please send the questions through the Q&A box, and I'll get to them either throughout the call. If not, I'll definitely get to them by the end of our call. And I'd like to thank our partners who've supported us for this event. Reality CG is our local partner, and SAS Center for Entrepreneurship are our community partners. Thank you both for supporting our event. And thank you, Nadine, for being here today. Nadine Mezher is co-founder and chief marketing officer of Sarwa, the first automated investment advisory platform in the region. Nadine co-founded Sarwa after years of consultancy in retail strategy and marketing with a track record of many successful projects. Nadine comes from a multi-disciplinary background with over 15 years of experience in management and brand communication across industries. So thank you, Nadine, for being here with us today. I really appreciate it. How are you doing? How are you doing? How's your family? How's everything going?
Yani, you know what? I'm okay. I'm as okay as can be, given everything that's happening. It's heartbreaking. The news from back home, but yeah, I mean, hopefully, just my heart goes out to everyone who got affected, got hurt, people that lost their lives. But hopefully, as we always say, we will rebuild and things can change from now on.
I hope that good comes out of it. And just to explain for everyone that might not be aware, Nadine is from Lebanon. So I'm asking about her family in Beirut. And I also wanted to send you a link if anyone would like to support charities in Lebanon. There's a list of charities that have been, that would be best for you to send your support to, and I'm sure they would appreciate it. So I just sent you that link. It has a variety of different charities based on your interest in what you'd like to support. So I just wanted to kick off to make sure that you're okay, that your family's okay.
Thank you. Honestly, the international community coming together has been incredible, whether it's, all over the world. I'm based in Dubai, so the UAE community, it's been amazing to see all that love going towards our country and our people. So, and thank you a lot for sharing that list. I think anything we can do to help can really make a huge impact.
Absolutely, I agree. So I'm going to kick off our event today just with asking if you could tell us a little bit about yourself and what brought you to where you are today.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I've had a bit of like so many people from the region, just a very changing kind of life. So I grew up in Saudi. I was born in Beirut, grew up in Saudi, Then we went back to Beirut. After that, I just really wanted to go and travel the world. So as you mentioned, I graduated. My first degree was in business administration, so marketing with a focus on marketing. But I also wanted to do other careers down the path. So I chose fashion. It's something I've been always very, very passionate about. So I ended up traveling to Italy, then traveling to France. So I studied and worked in both countries, and then ultimately moved back to Beirut for a few years. Met my current husband, and this is when we actually moved to Dubai. So I've been in Dubai for around 12 years. I'm also a mom of 3, so my kids are very much Dubaian. Their background, their dad is also very mixed, so they're I like to call them international citizens or global citizens, but I guess there's a lot of similar stories around. But that's what really brought me to where physically I am today. Career-wise, it's been an interesting journey too.
How did you transition from fashion to fintech? That is something I found very interesting in your background, because you had a fashion brand, if I'm correct, when you were in Beirut.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's absolutely.
So how did you get into fintech, and how did you join the Serwa team?
I would say I've never really had, I've never defined a career path and said, this is what I want to be. I just go where really my passion takes me. Might sound very cliche, but honestly, I do believe that if you really love what you're doing, whatever it is, you're gonna learn everything about it inside out. And as a person, I'm someone who really loves to learn very quickly, and I'm always reading a lot, learning a lot. So whenever that path took me, I just went with it without really, let's say, pre-planning per se. But what started as a career, and funny enough, my first job ever was in a bank. So out of university, I worked in a bank first. Then I went and continued my fashion studies. Of course, my parents wanted me to become a doctor, a typical story out of Lebanon, where you have the 3 careers, the engineer, the lawyer, the doctor.
Yeah.
But I've always been fascinated by everything that's creative. And I wanted also, like I said, to travel. So to me, fashion was something that I really wanted to do. And when I started working in the fashion industry, very slowly, I kind of mixed management, so business marketing and fashion. When I went back to Beirut, I was working for couture houses, and ultimately, very quickly, I ended up managing one of the couture houses. And I really liked also the aspect of creative management and how do you actually grow a business. And that's something that was very appealing for me. So I also launched my fashion brand. And unfortunately, there was a lot of, again, events happening in Beirut that led me to have to shut down at the time. Yeah. And this is when we moved to Dubai, my husband and I. And here I actually, what I did is I started teaching fashion, consulting for different, companies. And ultimately, I actually was working on a project with the government here. So I ended up joining the government of Dubai and working on fashion strategy and initiatives. And this was before there was D3 and the Fashion Council. So it was different entities within the government that were working together to create that strategy. And slowly it became not only purely focused on fashion, but I started working on retail strategy, which is umbrella, right? So across all the industries. Left the government, and because I wanted to have my 3rd child. So something I also, for a women perspective, how do you actually get out of a career and have that career gap and jumping back into a career? It's something that I experienced personally. So ultimately, I started again consulting and focusing very specifically on how do you strategically position a business to grow it. And this is when I met my partners at Sarwa. And when they approached me and I was helping them, this is when, I fell in love with what they wanted to do. And I really wanted to be on board, and I joined them. And initially, I was helping them to understand the market, to do the market research, position the brand, and so on. And then I became a co-founder. And this is where I am today.
Awesome. So one of the questions I had is, what excites you about the work you're doing? And I found it very interesting that you're talking about passion and that it's something that you are very excited about. So could you tell me more about maybe what excites you about Serwa and the mission that you're delivering through the company?
Yeah, of course. Since you're in the startup ecosystem, I think one of the main things we get asked is, why would you launch a company? And I think at the bottom of it is because you're answering a need in the market, right? And when Mark and Jatso, my partners, when we were discussing initially the idea of Sarwa, and they were telling me about what they wanted to do, and they were talking about bringing these services. So they both were living in Canada, and they were exposed to all the financial services over there. They came here, so just talking to family and friends. They weren't living here at the time, but they were just talking to like family, friends, and they realized that the region is really lagging behind. So we have a gap here, right? And especially when it comes to financial services. Funny enough, at the time, I had someone very close to me, family member, extremely close, who had some savings, and he's been working in the region for like 40 years. So he saved some money. He wanted to invest that money. He came here to a lot of different financial advisors, and I promise you, they wouldn't take him. They told him that, and his life saving to them was not enough. They're like, you don't hit the minimum requirement. And it just, triggered that thinking that we need to do something where we can make investing available to everyone and make it affordable to everyone. And that's really why I decided to join, because to me that was extremely important. I am from the region. Mark and Jad are from the region originally. So we just really wanted to kind of be able to bring that type of services here.
That's awesome. Full disclosure, I'm a new Serwa customer. So I joined, my husband and I joined less than a month ago. So I have both I'm curious both as a customer and both as for part of the ecosystem. Both of those are both aspects are very interesting to me, what you provide. So I just want to say, as a customer, I really found it easy to join, and it wasn't a complicated process. So could you tell us from your side, if someone wanted to, first of all, if it was a first-time investor and they wanted to join Serwa, what does the process look like?
It's very, very easy, as you said. So again, for us, it was important to do 3 things to make it as simple as possible, to make it as accessible as possible, and as affordable as possible. So to start, you just need to go to the platform. There's a small button, try us out. And once you hit it, you just register, I believe. And then there's a series of questions we ask you, and that helps us to assess your risk profile, your goals, your financial knowledge, so we can actually recommend the portfolio for you. So it's around 14 questions, if I'm not mistaken. We keep trying to shrink them. So
Nadine, I think I've lost you, and I'm not sure if it's from my side or from yours. Can someone please tell me if you can still hear me? Hi, Nadine. I wasn't sure if I lost you from your side or mine.
I have no idea. I just thrown out. Where did I lose you?
About the beginning, where there's 14 questions that you need to answer. Yeah. Mazen, yes, thank you. 14 questions. Thank you, Hannah and Mazen.
So yeah, once you answer the question, we recommend the portfolio for you that's suited to your risk profile, and that's it. You accept the recommended portfolio and you can start investing. So it takes a day or 2 for the money to hit the account, and then your money is invested for you.
And you need a minimum of $500, correct? You can start the investment, yeah?
Try to bring it as low as possible. We're always working on bringing it lower, but it only takes $500, which, is very reasonable.
Yeah, relatively very, very reasonable. And you have different kinds of portfolios, right? If you can just tell us a little bit, because that is what appealed to me, the portfolios that you have. Can you tell us a little bit about them?
Yes.
Yeah.
So as I mentioned, when you actually answer the questions, you are given a risk, so a score, a risk score, and based on that, we recommend a portfolio that's either it goes all the way from ultra conservative to ultra growth, right? So it depends on your risk profile, and that's how we actually recommend. But also we do offer investment based on values. So we do have socially responsible investment, and we do have halal portfolios, so Sharia compliant portfolios.
Yeah.
And then we also have the conventional. So we try to provide as many products as possible to cater to all needs.
Great. What I liked and what we joined was the halal portfolio. So I appreciate that. It's a very interesting, I think, proposition to say that you can choose to support things that you believe in. So I really, really appreciate that. And could you tell us, who is Serwa's ideal customer? Who are you targeting?
So we like to say that honestly, well, as you know, it's for everyone, and it's for anyone that's looking to build for a better future. I hope you didn't hear that. It's my good reminders. So it's really catering to anyone that wants to save for their future. Mm-hmm. Now, mainly you see our database is made up of young professionals, so people who have ultimately a little bit of saving and want to invest it for the long term. Yeah. But I would say it's someone who's patient, because good investing is all about having that Zen attitude, because it's not about, you know, coming in and out of the market and trading and buying and selling. It's actually really focusing on the long run and making sure you stay the course no matter what. And that's really the ultimate client that we cater to.
Okay. And what kind of advice do you have for a first-time investor who, either whether it's their life savings or whether they just want to invest small amounts on a regular basis? What kind of advice do you give them?
So the most important advice we always say is start, right? Like start investing, because a lot of people, you know, they think it's too complicated. They think it's not for them. But ultimately, if you're not actually in the market, you're losing. And there's a very prominent Harvard study that actually put that cost at 4.5% of return. So just to say that if you are not in the market, what you're foregoing during that 1 year is that much return on your money. Mm. Even, let's say you have your money in a saving account and that's giving you some return to cover inflation. So even if some people are actually have that, so they're actually losing to inflation. And that's a massive cost. To give you an example, if you actually, it's an example we always like to say, which is two sisters, one is 25 years old, one is 35 years old. So there's a 10 years gap between the two, and they're both looking to retire at the same time, which is 60, okay? So again, keep in mind, this is just an example to kind of explain. They're putting both the same exact amount, getting the same exact return. So let's say $5,000, 7% return a year. Mm-hmm. By the time they hit 60, that 10 years difference actually ends up being a $500,000 difference.
Wow.
Imagine how much it actually costs to be out of the market and not being actually investing your money and putting it to work for you, because it is about compound interest, right? And that compound interest is about your money making money on top of money. It's like a snowball effect, right? It just keeps adding and adding.
It's a little depressing thinking about it, but that's why your advice is start, make the most of the time you have. Okay.
That's not the goal. So ultimately, it's be in the market, right? Like,
of course.
You have to start. But first, just to take a step back, make sure you have an emergency fund set aside, especially given everything that we've been facing recently. You have to make sure that you have a safety net before you actually jump into investing. So that's very, very important.
Yes. I agree. I see two questions that have come in, and I also want to ask you. So I'll start with the questions that's come in that are kind of touching on what we're talking about. Georgina is asking, is the capital invested secure, and who manages the investment? And which authority regulates the work you're doing?
Yeah, of course. I mean, we are a financial institution, right? So it is very important to make sure that our clients trust what we do. We are regulated in two entities. We are regulated in Dubai by the Dubai Financial Services Authority, so DFSA, and we are incorporated in the IFC. We are also regulated by the Abu Dhabi Authority, so under AGGM by the FSRA. So we have two regulators. We're double regulated. We're super, you're really being covered in terms of what if something happens. You do have these authorities that will make sure that that never is going to be the case. That being said, we also work with very trusted partners. So we have brokerage firm where your money is also being held. Currently, we have Interactive Brokers. So they're, again, a very massive, big, internationally known brokerage firm. And we're working with Saxo also, which is, again, another very global firm that's regulated by the European markets. So all the entities that we work with, including ourselves, are very, very regulated.
And we had a question about how you build trust with the customer. So is this part of you working on gaining trust of the customers?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I would say, we, again, part of the VCs that invested in us. So Sarwa, we are in growth, but we just started a few years ago, so 3 years almost. Yeah. We have regional and international VCs that invested in us. Again, very well-known name within the industries. We have the Abu Dhabi Investment Office, that's one of our shareholders. We have the IFC, that's one of our shareholders. We have KIPCO, so it's a massive company out of Kuwait also, that are one of our shareholders. So we do have the backup of very, very renowned international investors. That's another part where we gain trust. And ultimately, look, we are also from the region, and what we're doing is for the region. And that's something that we are very passionate about. And it's a mission we truly believe in. It's not just saying a cliche.
Awesome. Awesome. I see it, Annie. For me, going through your communications and going through your website, I saw that. So yeah, it's very interesting. And I'm going to touch on another question from Mazen. He's asking about your investment. Is it a service based on stock day trading? And I don't think it is. صح?
So what we do is rooted in passive investment. So we only use exchange traded funds, and we use the ETFs to combine them into a portfolio. And the way we trade is we trade in international stock exchange. So we trade on the London Stock Exchange and the New York Stock Exchange, but through ETFs. So it's not, your day-to-day trading.
Okay. Okay. What does, if someone doesn't know what an ETF means, could you explain briefly?
Yeah, of course. So exchange traded funds, you need to think about them as a basket of securities or bonds or real estate. Basically, each ETF, let's say you have an ETF that's a stock ETF, right? A stock ETF would be, if you take the example of the US, one US stock ETF would have under it around 3,000 to 5,000 companies across the US market, right? So one ETF would allow you to diversify across so many companies. And then if you take that ETF and you add to it another, let's say, bond ETF and another real estate ETF, and then at the same time, you also include other markets, so you don't stay within the same market, that's how we create our portfolio. So an ETF, just to summarize it, is a basket of goods that would be either securities, so equities, or bonds, or real estate in the case of REIT ETF.
And the customers can, or your investors, I guess, the customers can keep injecting money into the account, correct? They don't just have to put a bulk. Yeah.
No, not at all. So they can start small, they can start big, they can start whichever way is comfortable for them. There's another way also that is called dollar cost averaging, which is, let's say you have a sum of money, but you're a bit emotional. So you're scared of putting all your money at once. What you can do is you can split it into different, investment sums, and then slowly start. So you add the first, then you add the second, then you add the third. And this way you also spread it in a way that you ensure, you're always buying at an average. So whether the market is low or high, you actually end up buying at an average cost. And that's why it's called dollar cost averaging. Some people do monthly contribution. Well, so that's something we also recommend, because you just automatically remove that sum, put it aside, and start investing. So it's like a saving that you ensure you do month on month.
Okay. Okay. That's really interesting. So you're okay with whatever strategy the individual customer wants to use, as long as you recommend that they put, or like constantly inject, even if it's small amounts, just constantly, regularly keep doing it. Okay.
We have access to, so it's not only, Sarwa is not only a tech company, pure tech company. We are what we call a hybrid model. So you actually have access to financial advisors that we recommend also talking to, because then they can really assess your own personal financial situation and give you the recommendation based on that. So you can even just schedule from now a call with one of our advisors, and they can really take you through the whole process.
And I don't want to sound like I'm selling Serwa, but the people that I've talked to have been very supportive. So they're definitely good at what they do. I want to go to talk about a bit more of, I guess, your lessons and your experience building Serwa. If you could tell us a little bit about your journey. If you've had any failures, what have you learned from those failures, or just lessons in general that you've experienced so far? That's a big question.
I would say it's very specific to different industries. Sarwa, like I said, is a financial institution. So we are heavily regulated. And I think if you talk to my partners, they would tell you the same. One of the biggest challenge when you're regulated is, how can you provide a service that's fast and efficient, but at the same time, you need to make sure that the safety of the client comes first, and we're not taking any risk, right? So whether it's us or the regulator, I think that's been one of the biggest challenge. When Mark and Jad came here and they wanted to launch Sarwa, there was a lot of talk around us that there's no way you can do it. This is, the region is not ready for full digital onboarding and so on. So it was, how do you not meet with the client? How do you KYC, a financial client without meeting face to face? And we're like, we use facial recognition and things like that. Unfortunately, it took time for people to adapt and to adapt to and to adopt at the same time. So I'd say one of the biggest challenges in our industry is working closely with the regulators hand in hand and finding these midways between everything, and making sure that we provide a very, accessible service without having any compromise when it comes to safety.
And then how have you found it in terms of attracting customers? Were they ready for the kind of service you provide? Or is that also a challenge?
I would say it changed a lot. I think the last few years in the region, we've seen so much change. It's maturing. And I'll give you a small example of that. When we started Serwa, I would look online for the volume of searches, right? So whether it's for SEO or any kind of digital planning. And it was very minimal. When we started, it was really the volume of online financial services, investing, so on. Robo-advisor didn't even exist. So that was a few years back. Now, when you look at these same keywords, the number is so different. So you do see there's a massive change. There's new habits that the customers are taking, and that's amazing. I mean, I'm really happy we have been part of that. And education is needed in our region. There's so much still to do. but it started to change. You started seeing different patterns than what we used to see before.
Yeah. Very, very cool. And in the sense of, I guess the landscape is changing. Do you have any competition regionally? Have you seen new players come up? How do you differentiate yourself from the competition?
We do, and it's been changing. Again, like I mentioned, when we started our competition, we're not specifically within the financial industry. You know, our competition was mainly real estate. Like you had people saving money, and you know, like I come from that same culture where you have money saved aside, you go buy a house, you buy an apartment, right? Yeah. People were not used to the idea of investing. So it was, you even digitally, you would see so much auction bids from big, you know, developers and so on. So there were the big banks, there were anyone that actually wanted to take money, saved aside, and have you spend it on them, right? Yeah. Even shopping, I would say. Like even changing the pattern of people from spending to saving. That was something we really were focusing on a lot, still do, but a bit less than before. Now you do have direct competition. We do have other, you know, digital financial advisors. There's, you know, the likes of Wahed that are in the region. We heard of a global one penetrating the market. I don't know if that's going to happen anytime soon. So we do keep an eye on what's going on, but ultimately we know it's not a bad thing. I know that people do tend to say that, but I actually do believe it's not a bad thing, because it ultimately, from a marketing perspective, it lowers the cost of educating your clients, and the market is big, and the market is big enough for everyone.
I agree. I've seen ads of a company or an app called Etoro. Is that the one that you heard? It's popping up like on my YouTube, and I know it's an American company, so I don't know why they're advertising in the Middle East. But anyway, I'm going to change gears again. I do have a question about COVID. How has COVID impacted your business?
We've been lucky in different ways because we actually closed a series of funding. So Series A, right before COVID hit, right? So January, Sarwa closed the Series A. Yeah. That is giving us runway for a couple of years. So we were not in a position where we're struggling for funds and so on, which I know a lot of colleagues in the industry have been in that situation. But also, honestly, what we've seen is the other side of the equation. We actually saw an influx of people coming because we are a fully digital company. So things literally didn't change for us. We are built in the cloud. We have all our support online. Everything we do is online, onboarding fully digitally. So there was no change from the team's perspective. Yeah. But people saw it as an opportunity to actually start investing, because at the time the stock market dropped. So a lot of people thought about it as an opportunity to actually buy cheap, which was a smart thing to do. And from our own clients, because we put so much into educating them on staying the course and do not panic, and the market moves like that. There is volatility in the market, that's its nature. We didn't see panic selling, right? So even our clients were redepositing if, again, they actually had a steady income and they had a steady job that they can actually do that. Yeah. So to us, it didn't impact negatively, but I do understand that for other probably companies, it would have.
Yeah. One thing that I think, from my perspective, just as an individual, we haven't, because we haven't been going out now for 5 months, we've ended up saving so much more money. So I think maybe also the change in the spending habits for a lot of people. We haven't been traveling, we haven't been going out. So that probably would also make you have a bit more money to put into savings.
Very true.
Yeah.
Very true.
Very, very interesting.
If you didn't lose your job or you didn't get a salary cut, I think a lot of people found themselves in that similar situation where they're like, oh my God, all of a sudden, you know what? I do have saving. Let me think about investing. That's what we saw as Sarwa, is we saw this big increase but like you said, there is a change in pattern. There's actually a very interesting McKinsey report on the region and specifically on Saudi that came out not a long time ago.
Yeah.
That talks about and details the change in consumer patterns and habits and how we're shifting from a spending culture to a saving culture. So maybe that's one of the positive impacts that came out of COVID.
No, definitely, which I can see on a personal level with my family as well. So I think it's made people question their priorities and want to change their lifestyles to fit maybe a bit more sustainable, whether it's financially sustainable or other ways sustainable lifestyle. So it's had its blessings, as difficult as it is for many other reasons. So I'm going to go through a bit of the questions that we've been getting over Q&A. And I'm just going to start with what I can see on the top. I think we've already touched upon how you're differentiating it from your competition. Taha is asking, could we track our investments? And also I think Dr. Samir is asking, can investors select their ETFs? So could you answer both of those questions?
Yeah. So tracking your investment, absolutely. When you're a Sarwa client, you have access to your own dashboard and you can see how the investment is doing. So that's something you absolutely have access to.
Okay.
In terms of, remind
Selecting,
me of...
can investors select their ETFs or are funds automatically allocated?
That's a very good question because we do get that a lot. Currently, they're actually automatically allocated to you, but we're working on hopefully soon providing that sort of customization where people can still also choose the ETF that they want to. We don't currently have it, but it's something that we have in the pipeline.
Okay. And Dr. Samad is also asking if you have any deposit insurance for investors.
So under the current setup, we have something called SIPC, which is because we're working with interactive brokers, they have insurance under, like I mentioned, the SIPC, which covers up to $500,000 in
Okay. Okay, great. Very, very interesting. So there's a long question from Georgina. She's saying the majority of small businesses are self-financed and often grow organically, which takes time. So even companies who had been doing well now find projects are on hold until probably the end of 2020. What advice would you give companies struggling with the impact of COVID and where they're having a challenge to access liquidity?
Okay, so I think there's two folds. First is how do you survive COVID? It's very tough, but I think ultimately any business can actually look into what offering they have. And I'm not a fan of the word pivot, but maybe focus on, you know, the needs in the market, because right now the reality is the market needs did change, right? There is something that's different about consumer psychology and how they're approaching everything. And it's extremely important to actually look into, okay, what is my business? What are people looking to get out of it? And how can I get from here to there, right? And if it's something feasible, if it's something you can actually move towards, then start. And I know it's not, it's very easier said than done, I guess. But I can tell you honestly from personal experience, my husband was launching a startup. He quit his career of 11 years to launch a startup literally a few weeks before COVID hit. And his startup was very much linked to transportation, which was gone, right? But he pivoted. He actually figured something out to do with the tech, with the app, and he changed the business model and it's working. It really depends on what the business is, but if you can think of something where you can offer with what you have a service to the market, then make it happen somehow. Liquidity, I do know for a fact that a lot of investors right now are shy of spending funds and they're holding off. But I can tell you is if a startup manages to survive this, then these VCs were gonna be knocking on your door, because like if you can actually go through that, you have something extremely successful in your hands. But try as much as possible to tap into your immediate community. Don't, you probably know, but don't start a new relationship with people that don't know about who you are first and foremost and what your company does, because that takes time to build. And under this current narrative that we all find ourselves in, it's even tougher than usual.
No, I agree. Could you give us, because there was a question about if a startup is approaching investors, could you give us advice from your experience on if you're approaching investors, let's say for a seed round, how to go about that?
Honestly, tap into your immediate network. Don't go to people, that's the answer I'm gonna stick with. Don't go to people that don't know you on a personal level, because we all know in the startup world that there's so much to actually these investors investing in the team itself and the people behind the idea and their ability to deliver on that idea. Again, I know a personal friend who actually went and closed a big seed round within COVID, but that's because he went to people that knew him and they've been waiting for him to launch that idea. So you have to find people that are willing to take the risk with you, but believe in you personally.
And I guess the flip side of that is, if you don't have those relationships, work on building those relationships, and maybe not for like an immediate return, but invest in those relationships and they'll get you somewhere. Okay.
Absolutely. There's a lot of accelerators, incubators, there's a lot of government entities that can help. There's a lot of private initiatives. So try to find these online and try to see how you can actually get to them.
No, definitely. Interesting. So on a personal level, how do you measure success?
I like how do I measure success? Personally, to me, if I feel that whatever I'm doing is impacting the future of my kids in a positive way. I just want to ultimately feel like I contributed to a small change somehow, and that I can tell them, you know, when they're older, Mama did this, you know, I was part of this. But it is, success is something very relative and it's subjective, I would say. But yeah, I'd say to me, it's about happiness. It's about having enough to be able to economically also, you know, survive, but just feeling that I'm fulfilled internally.
Okay, very, very cool. So how old are your children, just on a side note?
I have a 10, a 9, and a 4.
Very cool. Okay. Allah yakhalli lak iyahum.
Thank you.
Must be fun. Must be fun, especially if you're working from home.
Especially with everything happening, and now summer in Dubai, and you can't really go outside. So it's going to be an interesting couple of months. Let's see.
Same here. Oman is very similar in terms of weather. So I'm going to tell everyone listening, if you have any last questions, please send them through. I have some questions and then I'll go through yours as well. I have a question from an anonymous attendee asking, did you invest in Serwa yourselves? Maybe as a customer, I think they mean. Like, do you have a Serwa account?
Yeah. Yeah, I do. Okay. Yeah, I do. Okay. I do. I have a Sarwa account for my kids, and I try not to look at it at all. So I'm trying to do what we preach, which is just put it there and forget about it, and try to add much as I can on a monthly basis.
That's smart. For your kids.
Most of my team actually have a Sarwa account too. Yes.
Okay, that's great. Very interesting. And then this touches on the topic that we were just talking about. Another question: what advice can you give to entrepreneurs about running a business?
Oh, I mean, they know what it's like. It's amazing because it's challenging and it's rewarding at the same time, and it's crazy and it's all about hustle, right? You always need to find creative way to grow without having to spend money. There's always like that balance between the two, wearing so many hats at the same time. But ultimately, there's something about, you know, having a startup that's unlike anything else, because it's literally like a baby. It's watching a baby grow, and I have babies and I have this. So it's I see a lot of similarity between the two. But my advice is, first, if you want to launch a startup, first, really make sure that you're answering a need in the market and what you're providing is different somehow. Because, you know, there's a lot of great ideas out there, but you need to ultimately be able to get that idea to the market and to be able to market it. And an idea without proper marketing is also just an idea that didn't get anywhere. So I would say, if you have a great idea, you know for a fact that there's a need in the market for it, build that case and go for it. And a lot of the reason why people don't do is, again, maybe there's a part of us that's a bit risk averse. And I think if you really believe in your idea and you have a great support system around you, because you're going to need it, just go for it.
Speaking of marketing, I really admire the marketing that Sarwa, like the brand that you've built and the marketing that you use, just the messaging, all of it. I really do admire that. So my question, I guess, is about your marketing lessons or marketing tips. What kind of advice do you have to people that want to build a strong brand for their businesses?
In today's world, I would say focus as much as you can on the owned channels. So in marketing, we have three, right? You have your owned, you have your earned, you have your paid.
Yes.
Everything that's owned is under your control. So make sure you have the right messaging going out to your database. So that could be your website, that could be your social platforms, that could be your internal EDMs. So again, newsletters, but make sure the newsletters have relevant information that people want to know about. So try as much as possible to get as much as possible out of this. Your earned channels. So in Sarwa, we focused a lot, again, that goes to the part of building credibility on the press, PR, building that relationship with the media, because ultimately, you know, people want to see that there's a system behind what we're doing, and they want to know the story behind what we're trying to do. So we focused a lot on getting the word out there and making sure that, you know, we have good coverage and trying to reach as many people as possible. And this is a free channel, by the way. We don't use an agency, we do it ourselves. And the backlinks, so anything that you can get people to actually talk about you in a positive way and say, you know what, drive traffic because they believe in what you're trying to do. Ultimately, it's also about, you know, getting people to be your own ambassadors. And that's also what we've done a lot with the community. So we started with having really brand ambassadors that believe in the mission itself, and they were the ones spreading the word. So we're big in community engagement. We were doing a lot of workshops, a lot of events, all free, because we really wanted also to educate, but also to get that word for people to know about us. And as much as you can, don't really try to minimize the paid channels, because ultimately there's a lot of also, you know, the same segment is being bombarded by so many messages. So whenever you can, remain relevant, focus on content. That's what we do. We focus a lot on content, on SEO and education.
Yeah, okay. And I can say for me, from my perspective, I see that it really works. And I like the voice of the brand. It doesn't sound like it's talking down to you. It sounds like it's someone talking with you, having conversation. So I really do like that.
Thanks for that. We worked a lot on the brand itself. So we worked a lot on what ultimately did we want Serwa to be. And we did this fun exercise, you know, when you do branding is we sat down with the team and we're like, if you were to imagine Serwa as a person, what would that person be like? And we wanted the brand to be approachable, to be, friendly, to have that tone that's very conversational. Again, because we wanted to differentiate from the financial institutions that we're traditionally used to.
So I guess that's a good question. If you're running a business, if you're listening and running a business, what kind of person would your business be? And then if you don't like that kind of person, how do you change it? How do you change the image and the brand? Okay, very interesting. So we have questions. I'm going to go back to audience questions. Ibrahim is asking, are you thinking of taking Serwa to an international level?
I mean, any startup would have that big dream, but to be honest with you, currently we're focusing on the region and we're going market by market. So for now, Sarwa is UAE. We're expanding to Saudi soon, and we're going to go market by market. So global, yes, but first regional.
Regional. Okay, great. Very, very interesting. Awais is asking, before approaching investors, do we need to have an established company? What if we just have an idea and want to pitch with a presentation? What do you think about that?
You can. It's more challenging, but you can. I mean, usually when you go and approach investors, you have to have a pitch deck that summarizes your business model, the team behind it, what you're trying to solve, the projections, the financials, everything. So you have to detail all of this. And usually they would require some sort of MVP, right? Minimal viable product. To be fully transparent, we did not have that with Serwa. So what we had is we had an idea and we had a business plan. We didn't have the MVP, but we had investors that knew us and knew what we were trying to achieve. So pre-seed and seed, it was really friends and family, but we also had a VC that started with us from the get-go. That's because this VC believed in what we're trying to do and in the model that we had, because they were familiar with robo-advisors in North America. So their name is Shuruk and they're amazing. They've been partners with us from the get-go. So it does happen. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. It just is a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, and with the right relationships and the right support. Okay. Very cool. Awais is also asking about if he had an account with Serwa, can you withdraw his money anytime or only after a timeline?
No, we have no lock-in. So again, that was one of the models we wanted to break completely. So you can open an account anytime, you can close your account anytime, zero penalties. There are no fees, not for entry, not for exit, not for trading. We don't have these. We just have one fee, which is the advisory fee, and that's it.
Great. And how much is that advisory fee?
So it really depends. Currently, we actually don't charge anything for accounts from 0 to 2,500. So that's 0. And then from 2,500 to I think 50,000 is 0.85%. And then it drops the more money you add. So it becomes just less and less.
Okay. Yeah. And do you have any features down the line, any new products that you're thinking about?
We're always thinking of products. We do. We're working on a lot of things. First and foremost, we're working on an app. Working on a full Arabic onboarding. So that's coming also. Right now we have the static website and a lot of content that's also in Arabic. But now we're actually transforming the whole thing also to have in parallel an Arabic website. And we're working on a lot of new portfolios and additional products. So that's in the pipeline. We're also working on streamlining the whole process of onboarding, making it faster and more efficient. So there's always a lot of work. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. And do you see there's a question from Anonymous, innovation in your type of business? I guess, what are the new trends or what are the new innovations that you're seeing?
It keeps changing, to be honest. In financial technology, one of the biggest brands that everyone was talking about is, again, open banking, is like all the financial technologies that start in a very niche kind of vertical to expand beyond and become like digital banks, each one on its own.
Yeah.
But it keeps changing depending on the new narratives. And I think in the region, we're going to see more and more of fintechs coming in, and there's still so much of, you know, opportunities, many opportunities, because we can still streamline a lot of the services that we provide in financial institutions. There's whether it's payments, whether it's investment, whether it's trade, there's so much to do. And we started seeing more and more fintechs coming into the ecosystem.
Okay. And do you see, are there any risks that you see for Serwa? Like, are there any risks that you're mitigating or that you're expecting or potential? This is a question from anonymous, again, from an anonymous attendee.
I wouldn't say necessarily risk. I would say challenges based on the market size, because ultimately, again, financial technologies, we are regulated, and regulators in the region, they're still siloed. So you need to, if you want to expand into the market, you have to be regulated in each and every market. And that adds to the challenge, right?
Yeah.
So like I said, we were regulated in Dubai, then we had to be regulated in Abu Dhabi, then now we have to be regulated in Saudi. So every time we want to go into a market, we have to go through the process again. And each regulators, they have their own way of doing things. So it's just about adapting and making sure that we have the right setup. So I'd say that's one of the challenges.
Yeah. And has your business model changed, or do you expect it to change in the future?
Not really, no, it hasn't changed.
Okay.
We don't see it changing anytime soon.
Okay, that was a question from Mahmoud. I'm just going through, curious. So we have 15 more minutes, and I'm just checking if you have any more questions, send them through. Mohit is asking, how do you implement corporate governance in your business?
That's very nice.
Good question. Yeah.
But to be honest, you know, when we started Sarwa a few years back, that was something that was on our mind. But as founders, you know, again, you wear so many hats that you're just like run. And then unfortunately, corporate governance takes a back seat, which should not be the case. So we very quickly realized, no, you know what, we need to have that in place. So we do have a lot of meetings, we do have a lot of guidelines, we do have a lot of documentation, we do have, again, we are a financial institution, so regardless, we needed to do that, right? We have regular auditing that takes place, we have a compliance officer, we have a lot of different setups that ensure that, you know, everything is streamlined and everything is working properly. So I would say corporate governance is something extremely important in startups, and never underestimate the importance of starting it from the get-go. Don't put it, you know, on the side and forget about it. Yeah.
So what's keeping you up at night these days? Is there something that you're struggling with, a challenge that you're going through?
My country.
Yeah.
I'd say right now, that's the one thing on my mind, my family back home.
Yeah.
I would say I'm lucky here, you know, we have an amazing second home that's safe. So when it comes, I believe that let me take this back to Sarwa. Of course, it keeps me up at night, but in a good way, because I'm always thinking, what can we do to improve? What can we do to do better? What can I do to keep also motivating my team, you know? That's something extremely important when you're a founder in a startup, is how do you lead by example, and how do you make sure that ultimately you don't make them feel the stress if you're actually going through stress. It's like being a parent, it's like being a mom, right? And these kids feel your anxiety. So it's something also to keep in mind is the well-being of my team, and the fact that ultimately we're also responsible for our employees. And because we're a financial institution, we're also responsible for all the hard-earned money of the people that trust us.
So what's the answer that you found in terms of leading and not letting the anxiety show? How do you deal with that?
Oh,
If
I
you
have
found
my...
an answer. If you found an answer.
Well, I'm not going to pretend I have all the answers in the world, but I could tell you what I think works for me personally is I need structure, and I have to kind of structure my day to make sure that I have enough for work, for my family, for my mental health also.
Yeah.
So I try to, I look into my schedule every day in the morning, and I make sure I have slots for everything. I do pre-planning every week. I need to do that because that kind of keeps me sane, but also it helps me being very productive. We have a lot of tools that we use internally to do that too. So we use Trello, we use Confluence, we use a lot of like different tools that startups are probably familiar with, and Slack and so on.
Okay.
But on motivating the team, I think it's all about making them feel heard. We have regular team meetings. Sarwa, I think we also manage somehow, while having a proper system in place, to have decentralized decision makings when it comes to day-to-day operation, right? So we need to empower our employees to make sure that, you know what, they know how to resolve problems by themselves. But step back, whenever we hire someone new on the team, we always make sure, like the first thing we make sure that we have is cultural fit. We need, like, it is a strongly knitted family, and everyone in the team believes in what we're trying to achieve. So that there's a self-motivation that happens too.
And how big is your team?
So currently we're around almost 20, and we're hiring, we're growing.
You are, okay, cool. Very, very cool. Are you hiring, I guess with the shift that's happened across the region and the world for remote work, are you hiring only in Dubai? Are you looking for people across the region? How do you see that changing?
We currently have a few team members that are not in Dubai.
Okay, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
And honestly, we also have not been back to the office yet as Serwa. We're still working remotely. So the entire team is working remotely. It's been great so far. We do miss each other a lot, but we noticed that, you know what, remote working is not a bad thing for us. We have all the right infrastructure in place. So it's been working really well, very productive and so on. But I would say one thing that we're currently trying to hire more for is people that are also Arabic speakers, because we want to also be able to cater more and more to the region. So that's something we're also in the pipeline of looking into.
Cool. I have a question from Hamoud about if you've assessed or if you've looked at entering the Omani markets, and then how do you choose the markets that you're going to enter?
We do a bit of strategizing. So we look into the market size, we look into the effort that's required to go into the market, given that we're not a big team also. So it takes time and resources to actually do that. So we're taking it step by step. Like I said, hopefully, ultimately, the entire region we want to go into. We do have hope that also regulators across the region will be sitting together trying to align more and more. So hopefully that's something that can make it easier in terms of an exercise.
Okay, inshallah.
But that said, we do take people from the region depending on the KYCing, as you know, Wala, yourself.
Yeah, I'll tell everyone from my own experience. I had to transfer money from my local bank to the American to international broker. So it was just a bank transfer. And it took a few days and it worked. So it wasn't complicated. But I think, of course, being present in the country, it would just, it kind of reduces the barriers. That's really all it is. But yes, if you want to join, you can from across the region. So we have about 7 minutes left. And because it's a startup grind link, I think they might cut us off exactly at 6:15. I'm going to ask you my last questions. And then if there's any, if you have any burning questions and that we haven't touched upon yet, send them through. So where do you see Serwa 5 years down the line?
I see it helping as many people as possible in the region, and I see it becoming a norm. I think that's one thing that we really want to focus on is having more and more of these services available and making sure that we are more and more aware of the fact that we can use such services to help us honestly build for a better future.
Okay. Okay. I'm responding to someone here who's asked the question, but I'm just sending it to him. I'm just typing. But I'll tell you what he said. He's asking, or she, I don't know if it's a he or she, they're from a design background and they want to intern with Serwa. So how can they do that? Yeah. So I'll connect you two.
Yes. Thank you.
No worries. Awesome. Awesome. That's what I like about having events, honestly, because we did about 25 events in the past few years, and the best part of bringing people to Oman is the connections that happen with the entrepreneurs, with the speakers, and the local ecosystem. And I think that's the part that I miss the most right now doing virtual events, because we'd have people come in and either they'd have meetings before, they'd have meetings after, they'd connect with the ecosystem. And I feel like that benefits both the speaker's business and the local ecosystem, having those connections. So yeah, it's a great way to kind of build connections between Oman, the Omani market, and the region. So I'm just checking if there's any last questions. I think I've kind of probably touched upon the major themes. Is there anything that you'd like to add, Nadine, at the end of our event?
I really hope this was helpful and useful, and I really hope that people can start, thinking about their financial independence, their financial future. I'm gonna pass a small message here, but I'm a big advocate also of having more women on board, to having more women invest, because I think, there's no reason why we have, which is very similar to all international advisors, I would say, or investment companies. We have always seen the 80-20, 80% men, 20% women. I would love to see more women also joining, thinking about their financial future, but also across, for people in the region to really invest smart so they can live better. You asked about Etoro. To be fully transparent, our take on Etoro is, Etoro is a trading platform where people go in, buy and sell and buy and sell.
Yeah.
We personally are big advocates of passive investing, because trading, you end up losing a lot. There's so much research out there that shows exactly that. The more you trade, you're losing. First, because no one can time the market. No one can know which, stocks are going to be winners, which stocks are going to be losers. There's, again, massive data that shows that people tend, unfortunately, to sell the winning stocks and buy losing stocks long term, right?
Yeah.
But also trading, when you're trading, you don't realize that there's a fee incurred, and the more you trade, the more you're paying, the more you're losing on returns. So to us, if you want to do trading, if you want to be active as an investor, do that, but with a small amount. Don't do that with your savings. Don't do that with the amount that you want to put for long term.
Okay.
Exactly.
So to summarize, your advice is start now, keep it passive, don't leave the market because you're losing time. And then if you can, incremental addition to your investments. Yeah? Okay. Yeah. Okay. And I personally feel the importance of financial empowerment, and I feel like that is something that it's a big part of your mission, and I really appreciate you being here, because I wanted to I wanted to learn more about your story personally and as Serwa, and I hope that it's been beneficial to everyone attending. Thank you all for being here. And at the end of it, I just want to say that you can follow us on social media at StartupGrindOM if you want to follow our news. I'll send a recording of our chat tomorrow. I'll upload it and put it online and send it to you. So if you want to share it, if you want to kind of spread the message, please do. And at the end, I'll also thank our partners, Reality CG and SAS Entrepreneurship Center. And thank you, Nadine, for joining us. I really appreciate all your effort and your time. And thank you all our attendees for being here today.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much. And just to leave it on that note for entrepreneurs out there, because I know that's also as part of the main subject, I'm happy to help in any way. So and I think that's one of the things we can take from this is talk to the community as much as you can.
Absolutely. And if anyone wants to reach out to Nadine, I can connect you. So please just reach out to me and I'll share Nadine's contacts. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Ya'tikum al-afiyah. I hope you all have a great evening. Thank you. Bye-bye. Ma'as salama.